for men in 3 weeks. That's how many of Dutch Schultz's top lieutenants Vincent Coll personally hunted down and killed after they murdered his brother. Not gang hits, not orders to his crew. Vincent Coll pulled the trigger himself. 4 times in 21 days. He walked up to them in bars, on street corners, in their homes, and he shot them dead. By the 4th killing, Dutch Schultz, one of the most powerful gangsters in New York, was sleeping in a different location every night. By the 5th, he was riding in an armored car. By the 6th, he'd offered the New York City Police Department a house in Westchester County if they'd kill Vincent Coll. And the police, hardened cops who'd faced down the worst criminals in the city, said no. Not because they had moral objections, but because they were terrified. This is the story of the deadliest revenge spree in Prohibition history. And it all started with a murder on a Harlem street. May 30th, 1931. Just after midnight, Peter Coll was driving alone through West Harlem near Central Park. He was 24 years old. He'd spent the evening at a speakeasy on 135th Street, drinking whiskey and playing cards with associates. It was a normal Friday night. Peter had no reason to think it would be his last. The streets were empty. Most honest people were asleep. The only people out at that hour were cops, gangsters, and people who didn't want to be seen. Peter's car was a dark green Buick sedan. He bought it 6 months earlier with money from the beer truck hijackings. The car was Peter's pride. He kept it clean, polished. It represented success. Proof that a kid from the Bronx could make it in the underworld. Peter Coll never saw the other car pull alongside him. Never saw the gunmen who appeared in the windows. Never heard them say his name. He only heard the gunfire. Dozens of shots tore through Peter's car. Glass exploded. Metal punctured. Peter tried to steer, tried to escape, but the bullets found him. His foot slipped off the gas pedal. The Buick veered left and crashed into a parked delivery truck. The car came to a stop. Steam hissed from the punctured radiator. The attacker's car sped away into the darkness. 3 minutes later, a patrol officer found Peter's Buick. The driver's side door was riddled with bullet holes. Blood covered the steering wheel, the dashboard, the seat. Peter Coll was slumped over the wheel, still breathing but barely. The officer called for an ambulance. Peter was rushed to Fifth Avenue Hospital. Doctors worked on him for 2 hours, but there was nothing they could do. He'd been hit 14 times. Peter Coll was pronounced dead at 2:47 in the morning. He was the first casualty in what would become the bloodiest gang war of 1931, and his death would transform his younger brother Vincent from a dangerous criminal into something far worse, a man with nothing to lose. Vincent Coll got the news at 3 in the morning. He was in his apartment on Mosholu Parkway in the Bronx with his girlfriend, Lottie Kreisberger. The phone rang. Vincent answered. A voice on the other end said 3 words. Peter is dead. Vincent didn't say anything. He just stood there holding the phone. Lottie watched him. She'd never seen Vincent's face do what it did in that moment. His expression went completely blank. Not sad, not angry, just empty. Like something inside him had shut off. Vincent hung up the phone. He walked to his bedroom closet and pulled out 2 pistols. A .38 caliber revolver and a .45 automatic. He checked both weapons. Loaded. He put one in his waistband and one in his jacket pocket. Lottie asked where he was going. Vincent looked at her. When I come back, Peter's killers will be dead. All of them. Vincent walked out of the apartment. He didn't come back for 3 days. And when he did, 4 men were dead. Here's what you need to understand about Vincent Coll in May of 1931. He was 22 years old. He'd been in and out of reform schools since age 12. He'd been arrested a dozen times by age 23. He'd worked as an enforcer for Dutch Schultz, one of the most powerful bootleggers in New York. And he'd recently broken away from Schultz to start his own gang. Vincent and Peter Coll had been a team. Peter was the calm one, the strategist. Vincent was the wild one, the one who pulled triggers without hesitation. Together, They hijacked Dutch Schultz's beer trucks, stolen his shipments, recruited his men. They'd started a war, and now Peter was dead, murdered on Dutch Schultz's orders. Vincent Coll knew exactly who was responsible. Dutch had sent 3 of his top enforcers to kill Peter. Vincent knew their names. He knew where they lived. He knew where they drank. And over the next 3 weeks, he was going to find them, one by one. The first killing happened on June 2nd, 1931, just 3 days after Peter's murder. The target was a man named Salvatore Bologna. Everyone called him Slats. He was one of Dutch Schultz's most trusted lieutenants. Slats had been with Dutch since the mid-1920s. He ran protection rackets in the Bronx, collected debts, and handled problems that needed to disappear. Slats was also one of the men who'd been in the car that killed Peter Coll. Vincent knew this because his sources inside Dutch's organization had told him. Slats Bologna was drinking at a speakeasy on East 149th Street. It was early evening, around 7 o'clock. The place was crowded. 30 or 40 people drinking illegal whiskey, laughing, playing cards. Slats was at the bar with 2 associates. He felt safe. He was in friendly territory. Dutch Schultz controlled this neighborhood. Nobody would dare touch him here. Vincent Coll walked through the front door at 7:23. He wasn't wearing a disguise. He didn't try to hide. He walked straight to the bar. People recognized him immediately. Conversation stopped. The bartender's hand moved towards something under the bar, probably a gun. Vincent drew his pistol faster. He pointed it at Slats Bologna's head. Slats turned around. He saw Vincent. He saw the gun. He started to say something. Vincent didn't let him finish. He pulled the trigger. The gunshot was deafening in enclosed space. Slats Bologna fell backward off his bar stool. He was dead before he hit the floor. Vincent didn't run. He stood there for a moment, looking at Slats's body. Then he looked around the room. 30 witnesses stared back at him. Vincent spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "Tell Dutch Schultz this is for Peter. Tell him I'm just getting started." Then Vincent Coll walked out of the speakeasy. Nobody tried to stop him. Nobody followed him. They were too shocked, too scared. One of Dutch Schultz's top men had just been executed in a crowded bar, and the killer had walked away like he was leaving church. The second killing happened 4 days later. June 6th, the target was Frank Amato. Frank was another Dutch Schultz lieutenant. He'd been with Dutch for years. Frank specialized in intimidation. When someone refused to pay protection money, Frank paid them a visit. When a speakeasy owner tried to buy beer from a competitor, Frank convinced him otherwise, usually with a baseball bat. Frank Amato had also been in the car that killed Peter Coll. Vincent's sources had confirmed it. Frank knew Vincent was hunting him. After Slats Bologna's murder, everyone in Dutch's organization knew. Frank started moving around. He didn't stay in the same place 2 nights in a row. He traveled with bodyguards. He carried 2 guns at all times. But Vincent Coll was patient. He watched. He waited. He learned Frank's patterns. And on June 6th, he found his opportunity. Frank Amato's mother lived in a small apartment on Arthur Avenue in the Bronx. Frank visited her every Saturday morning. It was the one routine he wouldn't break. Family was important to Frank. Even gangsters have mothers. Vincent learned about the Saturday visits from one of Frank's ex-girlfriends. She didn't like Frank anymore. She was happy to help Vincent find him. On Saturday morning, June 6th, Vincent waited across the street from Frank's mother's apartment building. He sat in a stolen car, watching the entrance. At 9:15, Frank arrived. He had one bodyguard with him. They walked into the building. Vincent waited. 30 minutes later, Frank and his bodyguard came back out. They were laughing about something. Frank looked relaxed. He felt safe here. This was his mother's neighborhood. Vincent stepped out of the car. He crossed the street. Frank saw him when Vincent was about 20 feet away. Frank's hand moved toward his jacket. His bodyguard did the same. Vincent drew faster. He shot the bodyguard first. 1 bullet to the chest. The bodyguard fell. Then Vincent turned to Frank. Frank had his gun out now. He fired. Missed. Vincent didn't miss. He shot Frank twice. Once in the stomach, once in the chest. Frank Amato collapsed on the sidewalk in front of his mother's building. He was still alive when the ambulance arrived. He died 20 minutes later at Bronx Hospital. Vincent Coll disappeared into the city. 2 down. More to go. By mid-June, Dutch Schultz was genuinely frightened. Vincent Coll had killed 2 of his best men in less than a week. Both killings were bold, public, and personal. This wasn't normal gang warfare. Normal gang warfare had rules. You sent your men to do the killing. You stayed behind the scenes. You maintained deniability. Vincent Coll wasn't following those rules. He was doing the killing himself, walking right up to his targets in broad daylight and pulling the trigger. It was reckless. It was insane. And it was terrifying. Because if Vincent Coll would walk into a crowded bar, the Slats Bologna, if he'd shoot Frank Amato in front of his mother's apartment, what would stop him from coming after Dutch Schultz himself? Dutch moved out of his home. He rented a luxurious apartment on Fifth Avenue under a fake name, Russell Jones. He hired more bodyguards. He started traveling in an armored car. He stopped going to his regular haunts. He became a ghost in his own city. And still, Vincent Coll kept killing. The third victim was a man named Thomas Marro. Tommy, they called him. He ran one of Dutch's beer distribution centers in Harlem. Tommy hadn't been in the car that killed Peter Coll, but he'd helped plan it. Vincent's sources confirmed it. Tommy was smarter than Slats and Frank. After their deaths, Tommy went into hiding. He left New York entirely, went to stay with family in New Jersey. But Tommy made a mistake. He called his girlfriend. The girlfriend's phone was tapped, not by the police, by Vincent Coll's people. Vincent learned that Tommy was coming back to New York on June 10th to pick up money he'd left behind. Tommy thought he could sneak in, grab the cash, and disappear again. He was wrong. June 10th, evening, Tommy Marro walked into his apartment building on West 133rd Street. He'd been gone for 8 days. He was nervous, looking over his shoulder. His girlfriend was waiting upstairs. The money was hidden in a shoe box in his closet. $10,000. Enough to disappear for a long time. Tommy climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. He unlocked his apartment door. He walked inside. Vincent Coll was sitting in the living room. Tommy froze. His hand moved toward his gun. Vincent already had his pistol out, resting on his knee. "Don't," Vincent said quietly. Tommy's hand stopped. "How did you get in here?" Vincent stood up. "Your girlfriend let me in. She's in the bedroom. She's fine. I'm not here for her." Tommy understood. "You're here for me." Vincent nodded. "Because of Peter." Tommy tried to negotiate. "I wasn't in the car. I didn't pull the trigger." Vincent's expression didn't change. "You helped plan it. That's enough." Tommy Marro died in his living room. 1 shot to the head. Vincent walked past his body, went to the bedroom, told a girlfriend to wait 10 minutes before calling the police, and left. 3 down. And Dutch Schultz's organization was starting to panic. The 4th killing was the most audacious. The target was Joseph Corio. Joey, everyone called him. He was one of Dutch's top earners. He ran gambling operations in Midtown Manhattan. Illegal poker games, dice games, sports betting. Joey Corio made Dutch Schultz $50,000 a month. And Joey had been driving the car that killed Peter Coll. After Tommy Marro's death, Joey went aground. He moved into a safe house in the Bronx that Dutch owned. The location was secret. Only a handful of people knew about it. Joey had 4 bodyguards with him 24 hours a day. He never went outside. Food was delivered. He was a prisoner in that safe house, but he was alive. And that was better than being dead like Slats, Frank, and Tommy. Vincent Coll found the safe house on June 14th. How he found it, nobody knows for sure. Some say he tortured one of Dutch's men for the information. Some say he paid off someone inside Dutch's organization. Either way, Vincent knew where Joey Corio was hiding, and on the night of June 14th, he went to get him. The Safehouse was a 3-story building on Valentine Avenue. Joey was on the 2nd floor. 4 bodyguards were stationed throughout the house. 2 downstairs, 1 in the hallway outside Joey's room, 1 inside the room with Joey. At 11:30 at night, Vincent Coll and 3 members of his gang approached the building. They came through the back alley. Quiet, professional. They broke through the back door with a crowbar. The noise alerted the 2 bodyguards downstairs. They drew their weapons and came running. Vincent's men shot them both. The gunfire echoed through the building. The bodyguard in the hallway came out of his position. He saw Vincent's gang coming up the stairs. He fired, missed. Vincent's men returned fire. The bodyguard went down. Inside Joey's room, Joey and his last bodyguard heard the chaos. They knew what was happening. Vincent Coll was here. The bodyguard pushed a heavy dresser in front of the door. It wouldn't hold long, but it might buy them a few seconds. Joey ran to the window. They were on the 2nd floor. He could jump, break a leg maybe, but survive. Better than staying and dying. Joey got the window open. He started climbing out. The door to his room exploded inward. The dresser flew aside like it was made of paper. Vincent Coll stepped through. He saw Joey half out the window. He raised his pistol and fired. Joey Corio fell, not out the window, backward into the room. He hit the floor hard. The last bodyguard raised his gun. Vincent's men shot him 3 times. He fell beside Joey. Vincent walked over to Joey Corio. Joey was still alive, bleeding, gasping for air but alive. Vincent stood over him. Joey looked up. "Why?" Joey whispered. "You know why," Vincent said. Then he shot Joey Corio one more time. 4 down. By June 15, 1931, Vincent Coll had personally killed 4 of Dutch Schultz's top men in less than 3 weeks. But he wasn't finished. There was one more name on his list. The man who'd given the order to kill Peter. Dutch Schultz himself. Dutch Schultz was in a state of siege. He'd lost 4 lieutenants in 3 weeks. His organization was in chaos. Men were refusing assignments, afraid they'd be Vincent Coll's next target. Dutch's beer distribution operation was suffering. Trucks weren't being guarded properly. Shipments were being delayed. Dutch was losing money. Worse, he was losing respect. Other gangsters were watching. Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, Auntie Madden. They saw Dutch Schultz hiding in an armored car while a 22-year-old kid hunted his men like animals. It made Dutch look weak. And in the underworld, weakness was death. Dutch called a meeting with his remaining lieutenants. He told them Vincent Coll had to die. Not eventually. Not when convenient. Now, Dutch put a bounty on Vincent's head. $50,000. An enormous sum in 1931. Enough to buy a mansion. Enough to live comfortably for years. Anyone who killed Vincent Coll would be set for life. Dutch also reached out to other mob bosses. He asked for help. Auntie Madden, who controlled Hell's Kitchen, agreed. Vincent had kidnapped one of Auntie's associates earlier that year. Auntie wanted him dead, too. Lucky Luciano stayed neutral, but said he wouldn't interfere if Dutch took Vincent out. The hunt was on. Here's what most people don't understand about that summer of 1931. Vincent Coll didn't go into hiding after killing those 4 men. He kept operating. He kept hijacking Dutch's trucks. He kept recruiting men to his gang. He kept making money. He was a wanted man with a $50,000 bounty on his head, and he acted like he owned the city. On June 18th, just 4 days after killing Joey Corio, Vincent tried to assassinate Dutch Schultz himself. Dutch and one of his bodyguards, Donato Iamachia, were being dropped off at Dutch's safe house on 5th Avenue. It was late at night, almost 2 in the morning. Dutch's driver, Ciro Terranova, pulled up in an armored car. Dutch and Iamachia got out. Terranova drove away. Dutch and Iamachia started walking toward the apartment building. Then Dutch saw 2 men across the street in the park. They were watching him. Dutch's instinct kicked in. He assumed they were Vincent Coll's men. He drew his pistol. Amato did the same. They charged across the street, guns raised. The two men started shouting, "We are the law! We are the law!" They were New York City police detectives, Julius Salk and Stephen DeRosa. They'd been staking out Dutch's apartment based on a tip. Dutch realized his mistake. He threw his gun down and tried to run. Detective Salk fired a warning shot in the air. Dutch stopped and surrendered. Amato didn't stop. He kept advancing, gun still raised. Detective DeRosa fired one shot, hit Amato in the stomach. Amato collapsed. He died later at the hospital. Dutch was arrested but released after questioning. Later, when the detectives asked him what happened, Dutch told them something revealing. "Jesus, I'm glad you're cops. For a minute, I thought you was the opposition, out to give me the works." The opposition. Vincent Coll Dutch Schultz was so paranoid about Vincent Coll that he'd almost gotten killed by the police. That's how deeply Vincent had gotten into Dutch's head. But Vincent's reign of terror couldn't last forever. He'd made too many enemies. He'd killed too many people. And on July 28, 1931, Vincent Coll made a mistake that would change everything. He tried to kidnap Joey Rao, another Dutch Schultz associate. The attempt happened on a street in East Harlem. Children were playing nearby. Vincent and his men opened fire with submachine guns and shotguns. Joey Rao threw himself to the ground and survived, but 5 children were hit by stray bullets. One of them, 5-year-old Michael Vengalli, died at Beth David Hospital. The city exploded in outrage. Newspapers ran front-page stories with Michael's picture. The mayor, Jimmy Walker, held a press conference and called Vincent Coll a baby killer. A mad dog. The nickname stuck. Mad Dog Coll. The NYPD offered a $10,000 reward for information. Police Commissioner Edward Mulroney issued a shoot-to-kill order. If any officer saw Vincent Coll, they were authorized to use lethal force immediately. No arrest, no questions, just bullets. For 10 weeks, Vincent Mad Dog Coll was the most wanted man in America. He went into hiding, dyed his hair black, grew a mustache, wore horn-rimmed glasses. He moved from Safehouse to Safehouse, but the police were closing in. On October 4th, 1931, they found him. Vincent was arrested at the Cornish Arms Hotel in the Bronx. He was with his girlfriend Lottie. He surrendered peacefully. The police charged him with murdering Michael Vengalli. The trial began in December. Vincent hired Samuel Leibovitz, the most famous defense attorney in America. Leibovitz destroyed the prosecution's case. Their star witness was a paid informant with a criminal record he'd lied about. The judge issued a directed verdict of not guilty. Vincent walked free on December 31st, 1931. Dutch Schultz knew what that meant. Mad Dog Coll was coming for him again. Dutch made a decision. Vincent Coll had to die. Not next month. Not next week. Now. Dutch worked with Auntie Madden. They pooled resources. They hired the best hitmen in New York. And they waited for Vincent to make one more mistake. On February 8th, 1932, at 12:30 in the morning, Vincent Coll walked into the London Chemist drugstore at 8th Avenue and 23rd Street. He went to a phone booth in the back. He was calling Auntie Madden to negotiate a truce. Vincent didn't know the call was being traced. Outside, a limousine pulled up. 3 men got out. 1 stayed by the car. 2 walked into the drugstore. One of them carried a Thompson submachine gun. He told the customers and employees to stay quiet. Then he walked to the phone booth where Vincent was standing, talking, not seeing death coming. The gunman raised a Thompson and opened fire at point-blank range. The phone booth exploded in a storm of bullets. Glass shattered. Blood sprayed. Vincent Mad Dog Coll didn't have time to scream. 15 bullets were removed from his body at the morgue. He was 23 years old. The next morning, newspapers across America ran the story. Mad Dog Coll was dead. Dutch Schultz sent a floral wreath to the funeral. The banner read, "From the boys." Vincent Coll was buried next to his brother Peter at St. Raymond's Cemetery in the Bronx. Look, the story of Vincent Coll's revenge rampage is more than just violence. It's about loyalty, grief, and how far one man will go when everything is taken from him. Vincent and Peter Coll were brothers, partners, best friends. When Dutch Schultz killed Peter, he didn't just kill Vincent's brother. He killed half of who Vincent was. And Vincent responded the only way he knew how, with violence. Pure, focused, relentless violence. He killed 4 of Dutch's top men in 3 weeks. He terrorized one of the most powerful gangsters in New York. He made Dutch Schultz sleep in a different location every night. He made Dutch ride in an armored car. He made Dutch so paranoid that Dutch almost shot 2 cops because he thought they were Vincent's hitmen. For a brief moment in the summer of 1931, a 22-year-old kid from the Bronx made the entire New York underworld afraid. But Vincent Coll's story also proves something else. Revenge has a price. Vincent killed 4 men and got away with it. But his actions made him so many enemies that his death became inevitable. Dutch Schultz wanted him dead. Auntie Madden wanted him dead. The police wanted him dead. The public wanted him dead. Vincent Coll lived 9 months after his revenge rampage began. 9 months of looking over his shoulder, of sleeping with a gun under his pillow, of knowing that every phone call, every meeting, every moment could be his last. And in the end, he died in a phone booth, cut down by a machine gun, just like the men he killed. If this story about Vincent Mad Dog Coll's revenge rampage got your attention, hit that like button right now. Subscribe because we're dropping these true crime history stories every week. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think Vincent Coll was justified in his revenge, or did he go too far? And turn on notifications because next week we're telling the story of how Lucky Luciano became the most powerful mobster in America by doing something nobody expected, betraying his own boss. Remember, in the streets of Prohibition-era New York, loyalty was everything and betrayal was death. Vincent Mad Dog Coll learned that lesson the hard way. For killings in 3 weeks, 1 phone booth, 1 machine gun, 1 final message from Dutch Schultz. From the boys,